When George and his girlfriend Zoey agreed to watch Rex, their friend Cory's dog, they never expected things to go the way they did. Rex, a perfectly behaved dog. But George started to worry when Rex began displaying weird behavior around Zoey. George felt like he had all the evidence he needed to feel suspicious. He called the police, and they confronted Zoey. But what was so strange about Rex's behavior? And why was Zoey acting so suspicious? Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. George's best friend Cory was traveling abroad for a work trip for several weeks and was unable to take his beloved Doberman, Rex, with him. Normally, Cory would leave Rex with a dog sitter. As soon as Cory got the call from his dog sitter that she wouldn't be able to come as planned, he made his way to George's house. He explained the situation and practically begged George if he would be able to dog sit Rex for a week or two. Initially, George was hesitant, as he wasn't sure how his girlfriend Zoey would react to the idea. Thankfully, partway through the conversation, Zoey arrived home, and both George and Cory were able to ask for her input directly. It took a little bit of convincing, but Zoey was reassured enough that she agreed to dog-sitting Rex. Everything went well for the first few days, and the three fell into an easy rhythm. Everyone was happy with how things were going, and Rex was also having a great time at George's house. After a few days of Rex staying in George's house, the couple began noticing the dog was acting strangely. He began to bark in the middle of the night or come claw at the bedroom door. However, when George tried to take him out into the garden, thinking he might need the bathroom, the dog would refuse to leave the house. The new behavior began to worry the couple so much that George called Cory about the situation. This time, he was staying with strangers and was in a new place. That all made sense to George and Zoey. They decided to trust Cory's judgment, and after a few more days, Rex began to calm down and started behaving like a normal dog again. The couple began to relax back into the routine they had built with the friendly Doberman. He became very affectionate and always wanted to be with Zoey. Often the dog would lie next to her on the couch and even put his head on her stomach. From the conversations he'd had with Cory, George knew that Rex had been a police dog. Cory had adopted Rex after he retired, so all he knew was that the dog worked for the airport police. Had he been just a general security dog, or had he been something more specialist, like a drug detection dog? George noticed she was avoiding making eye contact with him, and even kept to herself more. Then came the morning when he found the strange message on her phone, and his suspicions became more serious. A few days after the strange text message, and Zoey beginning to behave differently, she mentioned to George that she needed to go pick something up in the town. Acting casually, George waited until she was out of the house and then decided to follow her. He loaded Rex into the car and followed his girlfriend as she drove to a gas station just outside town. Staying in the car with Rex weaning in the back seat, George watched, wondering what Zoey was waiting for. He felt slightly guilty to be spying on her like this, but he couldn't help but be concerned by her behavior. What possible reason could she have for doing something like that? Was she cheating on him? Was she smuggling some kind of contraband? He wanted to trust her, but it was difficult to do so when she was sneaking around behind his back. George had just got home, finding Zoey was once again not at home, and that Rex had chewed up one of the couch cushions. George took Rex out for a long run. When he got home several hours later, Zoey was waiting for him. She asked him where he had been all day, but George didn't want to tell her the whole truth. He said vaguely that he'd been out for a run. George couldn't help but feel resentful toward his girlfriend. Rex started to pace around the room nervously. Then all of a sudden, he began to bark aggressively, flinging himself at the front door. Stopping their fight, Zoey and George looked at each other in shock, knowing that something must be very wrong for Rex to be behaving like this. Checking the feed of the doorbell camera, George was horrified to see a strange man he'd never seen before, dressed entirely in black, standing outside the front door. He had to do something about this quickly before it could get even more out of hand. The safest option seemed to be to call the police. It seemed like a bit of an overreaction to her, But she was glad that George was taking their safety seriously. After just a few minutes, he could hear the sirens approaching from a distance. There was still no sign of the strange man, but he had the doorbell camera footage to show the police. 2 officers quickly arrived at George's house, alerted to the presence of someone trying to apparently break into the property or harass the inhabitants. From upstairs in the bedroom where Zoey heard George calling for her. What if the strange man was still there? But after George had called for her 2 more times, saying the police were here and wanted to talk to her, she decided to go downstairs. Starting to feel nervous, she asked George what is going on. Was this about the strange man? Rather awkwardly, George explained that he had called the police because of Zoey's increasingly suspicious behavior. He told her that he had discovered that Rex used to be a drug detection dog at the airport and had apparently been reacting towards Zoey the same way he would if there were drugs around. He said he just wanted to know what she was hiding from him. Zoey stared at her boyfriend in disbelief, hurt and angry by everything he had just said. He thought she was involved with drugs. He had been looking through her phone and following her. And all of this was based on some weird behavior from a dog that wasn't even theirs. I will tell you the truth, George, because this is insane. She couldn't hide how hurt she was by his wild accusations and the invasions of her privacy. But still, she sat and told him that she had read an article about a dog who sensed his owner was pregnant. She had started to wonder if that was why Rex had started acting the way he did. So she drove to the gas station to get a pregnancy test. To her surprise, her hunch had been correct, and she was pregnant. George felt terrible for his accusations. And, although the police congratulated them, it was clear they weren't impressed with George's actions. Rex leaned into Zoey's side, and she pet his ears for comfort. She hoped she and George could recover from this mess and everything would turn out all right.